Welcome back once again, friends. Let us continue with the pixel art activity. Previously, we have seen how we can use the for loop to create one row of squares, one row of squares. Now, let's see how we can give a different color for every square in a row. In fact, the answer lies inside the architecture of the for loop. Remember, for loop here is what we have used, and for loop is a repeat loop along with a variable. And this variable here in this case is jj. Previously, we had printed jj, and we know it goes from 0 to 19. Right now, the amazing bit that's going on, remember, is that this variable jj is being incremented every time the loop repeats. Now, what that means is that when I run this loop, so I'm going to remove this print statement. I'm going to, when I run this loop, let's say, I get 20 squares, but for each square, effectively, there's a JJ. And the reason is that every square gets created on a loop. So first time on the repetition, so for example, first time when I run this, JJ is 0, I get a rectangle. Then the JJ becomes 1, I get another rectangle, and so on and so forth. So effectively, for every square, I have got a value of JJ. Because remember, it's a repeat loop along with that variable JJ. With this, in fact, we can do some really amazing things. To start with, we can write, for example, an if condition, if else condition. So I can go and say, make sure I'm indented so that I go inside the for. So I can go and say, if say, jj is say less than 5, I can say, draw rectangle. Notice again, I have to be double indented here because this indentation is for the if, whereas if itself has to be indented with respect to for, right? So I can draw, say, for example, a green rectangle. Else, I can draw, for instance, I can draw a red rectangle. So what this will do is that, okay, I have to make sure my indentation is correct. So 1 and 2. So now now what's happening is that this if else has become part of the for loop, and so is this x1. Now, if I indent, for instance, this, that's a problem because then this x1 has become part of the else. I do not want that. Remember, I want the increment to happen regardless of whether regardless of the value of jj. So this must be in the same alignment as the if and else because this is a part of the for loop. Now let's say I say if jj is less than 5, print green, make a square green, otherwise say I make a square red. And this is interesting because what will happen now is that uh, I get 5 squares as green and remaining squares as red. And why did I get 5 squares as green? Because remember, jj is starting from 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. At this point, jj is no longer less than 5, which means I do not enter the if, I start entering the else. And hence I go red and all the other squares are red. Though I mentioned that this is wrong, but let's say I by mistake did this. Right now, remember, what has happened is that my x value plus 20 has in fact become a part of the else, and that is why notice I do not see any green squares because while the green squares were being drawn, this statement was not getting executed. Only when I started drawing the red squares, I got this statement executed, and hence the red overwrote the green. So make sure you don't make this mistake. Make sure you align this nicely. The indentation is important, right? So with this, notice I get two colors. Now, in fact, you can imagine I can extend this. In fact, I can technically put every square as a different color, but let's not, that may be an overkill. So probably I can just do, perhaps, let's say I'll say, I'll put an if-elif-else statement. So I'll say in elif, I might say, so I can say, for example, jj greater than 4 and, right, and say jj less than, say, 15. Again, I need a colon here and I must tell what happens in this. So I'm going to say, you know, and now let's say I put control V, but again, I must indent this statement correctly so that I can get the proper, logic that I want. So what's going to happen is that if jj is more than 5, so let me remove all these spaces to bring sort of, make it clear, and jj is less than 15, I'm going to draw a blue rectangle. Let's see how this thing works. So I'm going to end up with green, 5 green values, remaining red, I mean blue, and then red. And why did I get this many, blue rectangles? That's because if jj is greater than 4, which means I must be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. I must be on the right of this boundary. At the same time, I must also be, remember there's an AND condition, jj less than 15. So again, this is 19, 18, 17, 16, 15. So with the result, I've got 5 blue, 5 green, 10 blue, and 5 reds. Right now, in fact, you can keep extending this logic, but make sure the indentation is all correct, and you can pretty much give a different color to every rectangle if you wanted to. I hope this helps you. I hope you're seeing the value of the for statement here, because thanks to the for loop, we have a variable jj. Notice we have not defined it elsewhere. We have not even incremented it, but that is just happening through this loop. Uh, Take care. Thank you so much. Bye bye.